Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining us. It's another edition of At Home with the Gamecocks presented by Ford. Today, we're going to visit with Tysor Anderson, better known as Ty. He's a member of the Jacksonville State men's basketball coaching staff. We're going to talk about his duties and how he got to Jacksonville State in the midst of what has been an interesting life so far from Mr. Anderson. And we'll talk about somebody that's pretty famous that's a part of his family as well. First of all, Ty, back at it in the office, but everything good. Now, you and your family survived the pandemic, I guess, and everything is good.
Everything's good. Yeah. First of all, you're the voice. That's the first time that I've ever seen that line of demarcation where you go from Mike Parris to the voice. Like you just turned in, we did the countdown 3, 2, 1, and then I was talking to a different dude all of a sudden.
I didn't realize that. I didn't know there was any difference, man. I
Yeah,
apologize.
We're good. I was at for the first 6, 8 weeks, I was up with my family at a house in Maine. Very easy to social distance up there. Coach Harper and the rest of our staff, we would do our conference calls pretty much 3-4 times a week. We were able to stay productive. We signed 4 or 5 kids while we were up there, or while we were out of the office. So yeah, it was everybody's healthy, everybody's back, ready to go.
And you had a little bit of a scare in the midst of this at the outset, really, when this thing happened, and you had to quarantine for a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah, it was really just bad timing when we got back from the conference tournament, and we had been back maybe 2 or 3 days, and I was starting to feel I had a little bit of a fever, what felt like an upper respiratory infection. Went and got tested for the flu and didn't have it. And of course, there's a lot that we still don't know about COVID-19, but at the time we really didn't know anything. And so it was just kind of an assumption, but then they gave me some antibiotics and it was clear after about 4 or 5 days that I cleared up that I didn't have it. And then they got me a test and I tested negative.
And the rest is history, as the old saying goes. So everything's good. All right, let's talk about your career. Played basketball at Georgia Tech. Those were better days, I guess, at that time for the Yellow Jackets. They've had some hard times, but you played for a guy in Paul Hewitt, took him to a national championship game, battled some injuries. Talk about your career. How'd you end up at Tech?
Well, I always wanted to coach. I know you said we were going to talk later about my granddad, but I'm in a basketball family. I got, granddad's in the Hall of Fame, and I got 2 cousins and an uncle that are also college coaches. And so I just knew when I was really little, like when I was 7 years old, went on a road trip with him and his teams. And I just knew from early on I wanted to coach. And so coming out of high school, I was a Division II low major prospect, certainly not ACC caliber player. But through, when Georgia Tech called and said that they were, they had gotten rid of a couple of walk-ons and they were trying to bring somebody in that, that was kind of fit my description. I knew I wasn't going to go. I was sacrificing a college playing career to get an education, not just a Georgia Tech education, but to get an education at the ACC basketball level. So it was the best decision I ever made.
Well, you did that. You were student assistant your last year, and then you were JUCO ranks for a couple of years, and then you joined the Peace Corps for 2 years. Talk a little bit about that and your experience. Yeah,
I went to join the Peace Corps and living in Cambodia. I was living in the foothills of the Cardamom Mountains, very rural place. I was what the Peace Corps calls a community health educator. I worked in a small health center in a rural area where I worked mostly with pregnant women on like nutrition and antenatal care. And then I did some agricultural projects, taught some English on the side, built a basketball court, did a lot of different things.
Did you encounter anything there in your 2 years, like what has been going on here with COVID-19? Anything, any kind of outbreak or anything like that while you were there?
Actually, not on this scale. We did have, during the monsoon season in Cambodia, you get a lot of get some flooding, and
Right.
with flooding comes a spread of disease.
Right.
And so yeah, we did deal with that some, but not on this scale. And back in end of February, when I talked to my host family in that I lived with in Cambodia, and was just like going over what some of these symptoms were and of COVID-19, and how they're expecting a spread through Asia. I mean, this was in February, and so yeah, they're interestingly, there's been some Southeast Asian countries that have had a significantly more effective response than we have. Like, I was looking at Vietnam the other day; they've had 0 deaths from COVID-19, and and Cambodia is not too far behind. A lot of that is most of their country being in rural areas and being able to stay away from each other.
You did that for 2 years. You came back, started your coaching career, coached in high school. And then you came to Jacksonville State, just finished up your first year. And we talked to your granddad, a character, I guess, would be one way to describe him. I remember him from his days coaching at Maryland. And
yeah,
Lefty Drizel. What was it like with your grandfather, Lefty Drizel, at Maryland, and then James Madison and Georgia State after that as you came along? But I would imagine you've heard some great tales, some great stories, and just what I know of him and reading about him, it had to be just a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
In some ways.
It was, yeah. That special kind of hellacious fun. It was great. I mean, Granddad is like a deity to me. I mean, I grew up just completely idolizing him, wanting to be him. And I think, honestly, probably somewhere down the road, a therapist is going to tell me that I completely conflated in my head being a basketball coach and being Granddad. Like, I don't even know what the difference is for those two things. But yeah, I mean, he's always been somebody I looked up to, a great resource as I've become a coach. Somebody that he's never shy about sharing his input and his opinion. Growing up when he was still coaching, when I was little, that was he was still, now he's physically kind of breaking down a little bit. His mind is still super sharp. But yeah, when I was little and watching him roam the sidelines, it was a hell of a thing.
I imagine he's still not much of a Duke or Carolina fan, correct?
Actually, he went to Duke.
Right.
He's in the Duke Hall of Fame. So he's a bigger Duke fan than you might think.
What was it like? Did you learn a lot of basketball from him? Has he helped you since you got into your coaching career?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember being at the beach at his beach house in Delaware and going up there with my cousins and my brother and everything. And like, that was the best basketball camp I went to all summer. And him putting us through drills and yelling at us and making us go up to the park and play with the older kids, or with the men, and listening to him on the sideline. Just, he was, I mean, it's no secret. You look at, I'm a coach. I got 2 of my cousins are coaches. His son's a coach. Like, his influence on his family and professionally is, almost unquantifiable.
You're the operations guy. You get a little bit of everything. Has that been an adjustment for you in dealing with some of the things that you have to deal with and handle?
Yeah, in some ways it has, but in other ways, I spent, prior to this, I was a head high school coach, and for 3 years, and in my last year, we played a national schedule, and high school head coach is the ops guy. So I was, planning our travel and, ordering our gear and equipment and all of that. So Yeah, obviously with any job, there's an adjustment. There's new things you gotta learn, and but it was, it's all stuff that I've done.
Before we wrap this up, I guess the NBA draft, young man you coached in high school,
Yeah.
you're probably watching pretty intensely as to what happens there because he could be the number one pick, right?
Yeah, Ant could be the number one pick. They announced the other day, what are they going to do? The lottery in August or September, and then the draft in October, I think. I think that's
I don't know. I've heard so much stuff between NBA and Major League Baseball. It's
I know.
I can't, it's all a mud puddle right now.
I know. Well, if anybody out there with baseball is listening, tell those owners to just chalk up the 25% next season and let's get the season going. All right, let's play.
Who's your favorite baseball team? Major League.
Oh, the New York Yankees, baby. I grew up in New Jersey. Oh yeah, I grew up a big Yankees fan. Yeah. So this is I want to see this thing get going.
Last thing, a lot of new faces coming in. Has it made your job a little more difficult because guys are not going to be on campus still for a couple of more weeks? You got a whole bunch of new faces. It's different than it was this time a year ago as you came into this position, is it not?
Yeah, for sure. It's actually been, look, we've had a couple of Zoom calls with our returners and our new guys, and it's like I think I told them the first time, like, this is not a normal way that you are introduced to your teammates and your new brotherhood, but this is no ordinary time that we're living in. So everybody, the adjustments that we're having to make are no different than what everybody in the country is going through. So we're just rolling with it, and I'm looking forward to getting everybody here.
All right, Ty, thanks for your time. I know Coach Harper's probably got something for you to do, so we'll let you go, man. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Boys, be good. Thanks, man.
Ty Anderson, Jacksonville State's operations director for men's basketball, our guest on At Home with the Gamecocks, presented by Ford.